Well, welcome, Congressman Wexton and your team. Thank you so much for uh, spending your time on a Saturday afternoon to help these cadets out. I think you'll find that you're going to get asked some questions that you never imagined being asked. I mean, they are some of the most um, uh, advanced young people that I've ever dealt with, and I'm impressed every time I meet with them. But anyway, I first off, I want to say that we're greatly appreciative of everything you do. I know that your task at selecting people to attend the service academies is a difficult task. There's no right answers. There's no wrong answers, and some people get the nod, some don't, and that's just the nature of the beast as you tackle that. But you do a tremendous service to the academies in helping them select the people that need to be considered for admission into those fine institutions. I was a '79 graduate of the Naval Academy, and if I seem a little distracted, it's because I have the Army Navy game on in the background. And as you well know, that's the only game that matters all year. And right now we're on the wrong side of the score, so I hope that changes as we go on. For the cadets, I can't tell you how excited I am that you have the opportunity to listen and learn from this group of people. Every member of Congress, that's your congressmen, your senators, have a similar group that they charter to interview people and make the selection and make the recommendation on who they nominate for attendance at the Naval Academy, the Coast Guard, the Naval Academy, at West Point, at the Merchant Marine Academy, and at Air Force Academy. I mentioned Coast Guard, they're different beasts. They don't go through the same process. They have a normal application process, and you've had the opportunity to talk to admissions people from the Coast Guard. I think that was last week, as a matter of fact, and that. So, but as you can imagine, it's a difficult task. It's one where you get very qualified young people that submit applications, and you have to do this sort. And it's a tremendously tough job. So I encourage you as the cadets to really listen and learn, understand what it is they look for, what it is that's important in their minds, and then make sure that you understand what your congressman's team, what their schedule is, what they're looking for, and as you submit your applications to them to get a nomination. It's important. Those of you that have been to the Service Academy and our thing, you'll understand when I say this is the gouge. So you need to understand it. And if you don't know what the gouge is, that's the important information that you need to know. And so take it in that light. I want to re-emphasize what Vicki said about the Naval Academy, which is the one that we track the closest, because we receive our funding through the Navy for a large portion of what we do. And Congressman Wexton, I want to say thank you to you, because we get a plus up every year from Congress, and that allows us to do our mission. So we can't tell you how appreciative we are of you and your peers in Congress who give us that money every year. But it's a tremendous opportunity, like I said, and for the cadets, I can tell you that you're selected for. You might request for nomination for one service academy, and they give you another one. I can tell you that all service academies are good. Air Force, Navy, Army, Merchant Marine. You can't go wrong if you get a nomination to one of those schools. They all lead to a tremendous career serving your nation, and you should be proud of that. I want to emphasize what Vicki said earlier, Congressman. The Naval Academy class every year, there's about 10 to 12% of that class, of every incoming class, has a Sea Cadet background. So you can just imagine how important the Sea Cadets are to that institution. Also, taking it one step further, there's about 40% of the class, of the graduating class, that enlists in the Navy, does an officer accession program or something. So we have a tremendous influence on these young people, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony to do some introductions, but I can't say enough. Take notes and contact your congressman to make sure that you understand what their schedules are and what their requirements are, because they're all a little bit different, and you don't want to miss out for a lack of knowledge. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Admiral Moon. It's an honor to be here today. My name is Anthony Barnes. I have the honor of serving as the Military and Veterans Manager for Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton in Virginia's 10th District. I also have the absolute honor of serving as the Service Academy Coordinator for the 10th District. It's an incredible challenge that we go through every year, trying to select the best and the brightest candidates. Tonight with us, we have our Service Academy Board Chair, Captain George Siragusa from the United States Naval Academy. We have Rebecca Luke from the United States Merchant Marine Academy. We have Captain Sandy Willis from the United States Military Academy, and Lieutenant Colonel Ron Garrett from the United States Air Force Academy. Each one of them is going to have the opportunity to answer questions for you at the end of the briefing. So what I'd like to ask you to do as you listen through tonight, if you run across questions, concerns, issues that you have, please put them in the comments section in the chat, and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end. We're going to try to reserve some time for a nice question and answer. But what I'd like to do is start off by introducing the Congresswoman from Virginia's 10th Congressional District, Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton, to give us a few opening remarks. Congresswoman?
Thank you so much, Anthony, and thank you, Commander Powell and Admiral Moon, for inviting me to make some brief remarks this afternoon. Well, I want to first of all thank all of you for your interest in attending and serving our country as graduates of one of the service academies. Serving our country in uniform is one of the most noble things that you can do. And as members of the Sea Cadets, you already have, I would say, an advantage over many other applicants who are going to be applying. Now, here in Virginia, we are home to 26 military bases and the U.S. Pentagon. So we have many, many active duty and veterans here, and military members here in Virginia. So we have one of the most competitive selection processes for our service academies, I would say, in the nation. And I'm very, very honored that to have such an amazing academy board who does such an amazing process and selects candidates who are exceedingly qualified for the positions and to serve our nation in uniform. You will hear today from Captain Siragusa and the other Academy board members about the qualities and the qualifications that they're looking for when they decide who is going to be a successful candidate. Now, every single congressional office has a slightly different process, but I would submit that ours is the best. And so you will get a very good overview of the kinds of things that they're looking for, the kinds of qualities that they're looking for, and what you should be doing in your high school career to best prepare yourself for the process. So I wish you all the best of luck. I want to thank you for your desire to serve our nation, and take care and stay safe. Back to you, Anthony.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Next, I'm going to introduce our Service Academy Board Chair, United States Naval Academy, class of 1975, Captain George Siragusa. He's going to give you a nice briefing on our process.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Sea Cadet Nation. I'm George Siragusa, Captain Retired, United States Naval Academy, class of 75. By way of self-introduction, and when you find a mentor or someone who served, please be sure you ask them about their career. It could be interesting. I started my career in destroyers. Middle of my career, I actually taught at the Naval Academy, and at the end of my career served with the Naval Component Commander of NATO. So interesting career, and one that I certainly never regretted. I want to just say that this is an important and exciting night in your journey to your vision of becoming a commissioned officer in one of these federal service academies. As you'll hear several times, these institutions are special in a significant way, and they're there to develop leaders of character to lead men and women in the field. Now, a lot of this you know, but we're going to emphasize some things as we go along, and I think that's an important point. It's our team's objective tonight, really, per Mrs. Powell's request and suggestion, that the best practices we pass along to you in this webinar help you better prepare yourself for the day when you see, when you need and want and desire a congressional nomination for a chance to be part of that next generation military leaders. For those of you who may be listening also out in the audience and in the recorded session, we honor those tonight who have served or are serving in the armed forces. So let me begin tonight's briefing with a very simple concept. And the concept is there's a general commonality between our missions, not surprisingly, between the Federal Service Academy's missions and the mission of the Naval Sea Cadet Corps. And that is to develop leaders of character for service to our country. And that's not going to be the first and last time you'll hear that, but that's an important concept. And if you get into the details, you well know, Sea Cadet Nation, that this is your mission: to build leaders of character, to instill the highest ideals of honor, respect, commitment, and service, is something that is your creed and your code and that you attempt to live by. If you choose any of the academies, as the Admiral indicated, but I just happen to choose the mission of the Naval Academy, you'll see the same kinds of things. And to build and develop midshipmen with the highest ideals of duty, honor, and loyalty to serve our country in command, citizenship, and government. So right off the bat in this brief, you'll notice that there's a definite convergence and not surprisingly, again, an emphasis on developing leaders of character. Now, it is our desire tonight to present to you some of the tips and tools and points of emphasis that will help you better prepare for that day when you apply for a congressional nomination for one of these service academies. And it's our attempt tonight to offer you kind of a unique perspective from inside the Congressional Service Academy Board process. So this is a rare glimpse and a unique glimpse to take a look at our processes. Again, let me emphasize, young people, that these processes and things that I'm going to talk about tonight may vary across the country. Ms. Wexton said that as well. But we believe we have the gold standard, and in doing so and presenting you this unique view tonight, we think perhaps it will be a very robust way for you to prepare yourself for that day, not too distant future. We also want to provide you an opportunity to answer the questions that you may have in your mind. Now, when we do these outreach sessions, whether it's live or virtual like this, we usually start with a briefing outline that looks like this. We're going to start talking about national military service as a mindset. We'll talk about the board's mission and what the law says about congressional vacancies. We'll talk about the advisory board process and governance. So that's how we operate. We're going to talk a lot about candidate preparation, because that's the heart of this presentation, and the realities of those very small degrees of separation between candidates A, B, and C as they compete for those nominations, and the eyes-on interviews that help us decide who to select. We'll talk about some special preparation in time of COVID, and I think you'll find that particularly interesting. We'll talk a little about the message to the prospective candidates as we wind down, and then we'll open up the dialogue. And remember, anytime during the presentation, please put your questions in the chat box, because we will facilitate an expert panel of folks that are on our board who will help you answer your questions. And then, of course, we'll summarize and adjourn. So remember those questions. So let's start out with something that when we do the outreach is not necessarily top of mind, although for you, In the Sea Cadets, it is. So I'll go over this quickly. But when we're out talking to groups, whatever they may be, we talk about attending the service academies by first having a national military mindset. We are a nation at war, a war on terror. Deployment is a reality. The academies are not just destinations. And that the life that you're wanting to achieve by serving our nation as a commissioned officer is a life of sacrifice, dedication, and those are norms. Commission is not just job security, and the call to serve our nation has to be one from the heart that is genuine and selfless. And said best by Senator John McCain, the late Senator McCain, the oath of office that you take as a commissioned officer is a serious commitment. And it's not just about life and death, it's much bigger than that. Now tonight, our mission in the actual advisory board here in Virginia District 10 is really twofold. If you look at it at a certain altitude, there's two broad things that we do. We do community outreach to educate, advise, guide, coach, and hopefully inspire prospective candidates like yourselves to pursue service to our nation in the United States military, and particularly at these 4 federal service academies. And then during the period October to November, the congressional districts and the state's senator offices interview and screen candidates to make informed, prioritized, and objective recommendations for those nominations to those service academies. Now, as we look a little deeper into the congressional overview, I'll give you some perspective on what this looks like from the inside out. And I'll speak specifically to Virginia District 10, but this is pretty applicable for many of the districts around the country. We received about 100 to 120 applications. And our aim is for the Congresswoman to fill 5 seats per academy per year. And to do that, we recommend 10 candidates per academy. Now, I'm going to come back to this idea of 5 seats per academy per year. That's what the law states, but those seats are not always available, as you'll see as we proceed and try to understand the process a little bit deeper. This will give you an idea in this past 2020 cycle of how many seats were actually vacant for VA District 10. You can see the symbology on the left-hand side, Naval Academy, West Point, Air Force Academy, and the Merchant Marine Academy, and the vacant seats. And so the answer in the question marks is who will be selected for those nominations? Who will be selected for the offers? And are there any additional nominations that come from any other sources, such as the senator's office or presidential nominations? And the process is really designed to nominate the best of the best. And so we'll take a little bit deeper dive and describe how that happens. So to fill those 5 seats per academy per year from the congressional point of view, we recommend top 10 candidates per the academy. And we do that with a selection board or a service academy advisory board of volunteers led by a board chair to conduct those screening exercises. And then, as I said, coach, guide, and hopefully inspire. And then we also do liaison with the deans of admission and the superintendent's office after the fact to get feedback and to determine if there's anything on the horizon, any trends that we should know about. Just to put this in perspective, to contrast this with the congressional mandate of 5 slots per year or congressional guidance, the state gets 500 applications. Again, the district here in Virginia, District 10, got 100 to 120 in the last few years. Again, the state gets 500. So then they have to boil the ocean, so to speak, narrow that down and pick their selections. So let's continue to look at how do we go about choosing candidates to nominate and fill those vacant seats. Let's take a look at the board structure through the lens of three major elements. The first one is, what is the advisory board process and governance? How is it organized? The second one is, what does the candidate pre-board preparation look like? And then finally, what are some of those realities of those very small degrees of separation between those candidates? And again, the caveat at the bottom, young people, is that every congressional district around the country is slightly different. And we're going to talk about it from the standpoint of Virginia District 10. Well, the way we go about comprising the governance of our board is that you have a host. Any evening we run an interview session and 3 members, a host and 3 members. And the membership on the board that night is cross-branched. So those 3 members sitting in the 3 chairs across from the candidates are Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and Merchant Marine, and a diversity of experiences. Maybe they're a surface warfare officer like myself. Maybe they flew jets. Maybe they're a Marine officer. And their demographics may be different, and their experiences and careers are different. And that difference provides for a very robust and very rich conversation with those candidates. Now, to continue, when the candidate comes into the interview, the approach is eyes on. And we want to do this beyond just the application. We have a paper file, but what we're trying to do is breathe life into that file to understand the competency, through a competency-based interview methodology, how well are those young people, young candidates, how well have they prepared themselves for the realities of what it means to serve our country in uniform. And we look for consistency through a rubric or an algorithm, some kind of a scoring mechanism for consistency and objectivity, and we reach consensus. Key dates in this process, generally applicable across the country as well. The applicants' packages go out in May. We're going to talk about one of the things that you can do even now in preparation for next May to take a look at these. And the applications are generally due at the end of September so that the boards can conduct their interviews in the time frame October to December. And sometime in the February timeframe, normally speaking, the candidates are notified whether they have received or not received their nominations. Now, let me shift gears a bit and talk about those degrees of preparation. And again, I know that there are really sort of 2 factions inside the Sea Cadet Corps. There's the those that may have a little more time, and those that are about to, are in or entering high school. Regardless of that, these tips that we're going to talk about in areas of preparation can serve you well. First of all, do your homework, surf the web, read articles, talk to grads, service members, and those of us who might be classmates of academy grads. Know the mission of those particular schools, know the honor codes, know the warfare specialties, know the basic requirements. Familiarize yourself with service academy specialties, the academic programs, they vary slightly, and understand your requirements for freshman year. These things are all now on the web. The board will probe you or ask you questions to test your understanding of these things. Sea Cadets, I urge you to take both the SAT and the ACT when the time comes. And the reason is that they differ in the way adults learn. They differ in the protocols and the way those tests are set up. The way you will process those in your brains will be different. It's that simple. And we can super score the tests. We can take the best scores from your ACT and combine them with the best scores from your SAT. And that becomes important as a means to gauge your academic proficiency. You need to lead, not just be part of community service projects, either in school or in the community. And that leadership, however slight, is something that we would ask you to be ready to tell us about. Certainly, you need to apply for all eligible nominations. We've spoken already of two of them, a congressional and a state, but there may be others. And we can talk about those. And if you have questions about those, please put those in the chat box. Also, ask yourself, what is the best fit for me? Because for some individuals, perhaps the Federal Service Academies are not the path to commissioning, but perhaps it's ROTC or OCS. I urge you to clean up your social media footprint if you have one. And when you come to the interview, wear business clothes or business casual attire. Certainly, conducting a practice interview with an adult or someone who has served is really a good best practice. Practice equals confidence, the confidence equals poise, and that poise will help your credibility during the interview. And finally, on this page, in preparation, run, get in shape, do pull-ups, and stay in shape for the PFT. Because as you'll see here on this next page, it's a pretty shocking statistic, and the source is cited at the bottom. This is a relevant and very relevant source. 71% of Americans in the ages for military service cannot meet the qualifications for one reason or another. So staying in shape becomes really a large part of this. Now, regardless of where you are, but certainly you heard the Congresswoman say that in Virginia District 10, as in many districts around the country, the candidates truly are outstanding. The degrees of separation are small. Candidates come to us from junior ROTC, picture in the upper left and the upper right. They come to us from the Civil Air Patrol, lower right. They come to us from some very highly touted STEM high schools. They're Eagle Scouts, and nearly all of them are scholar athletes. So it becomes important for you to understand that this is a competitive process. And we are mining for diamonds in the rough. We are literally dining for those leaders to become the next generation military leaders. So let's move on to a little bit, let's move on to what can be, in time of COVID, some additional areas of preparation. We've already spoken about this, but let me emphasize it. Spend some time online on those Academy websites. Know the honor code. You might find it shocking to know that there are times during our interviews when some of the candidates we see do not know the honor codes. We talked at the top of this presentation about the academies being places to develop leaders of honor. And these honor codes provide you with a compass, a moral compass for the rest of your lives. So knowing the honor codes of these schools is very important. Explore the congressional state nomination websites. There's info on these websites. And in the May timeframe, for those of you that are think this is a little bit sooner than later, you'll be able to see the kinds of packages and packets that the congressional websites are asking for as far as their nomination requests. Attend virtual seminars, take virtual tours, and explore the academic curricular and major programs of these various federal service academies. Zoom conference with those who have served. Focus your community service during time of COVID in outdoor projects. Remain in physical shape. I've spoken to that before. And that really does help support your mental focus as well. Definitely find a mentor and get a diversity of perspectives from anyone you can talk to. Third from the bottom, I urge you to read biographies of leaders, not just military leaders, but any leader. Be a student of leadership. Learn to swim. Now, you can't do that necessarily in time of COVID, but you can do the theory now and practice post-pandemic. And think ahead of your course load for what will be your high school years. Talk to adults and counselors. Plan to take pre-calculus, AP calculus, and AP chemistry. Those courses will make you highly competitive. We're even going to go as far tonight to give you insight as to tell you what we've said to candidates just prior to coming into the interview. This is a page right out of the interview pre-brief emphasis. We say to them, to the candidates that are coming, please be on time for your board and understand there'll be 3 officers when you see the board, whether it's in person post-COVID or in time of COVID virtual, in a 30 to 40-minute interview. And it's competency-based and it's a discussion. The second big bullet on the page is perspectives from the board chair. I can tell you, having done this for some years, if you're asked a direct question, give a direct answer. Don't guess. Not a good idea with the kind of experience we have on the boards. And focus your response. So think about what your response is before you actually give an answer. And this is an opportunity to showcase your potential for military service. Help the boards wherever you are. Help us help you. By speaking to your early stage leadership, however small you think it is, in the community, in school, in sports, talk about that. We want to hear about you, your critical thinking, your accomplishments, and why you will succeed. You can do that in a humble and respectful way, but it's important to help us help you. Final thoughts, relax and have an adult conversation with us. Focus on your why, that's all about you. And again, it's okay to be respectful and humble and confident as you lead us to help us understand why military service is so important to you. And finally, I'd say never leave a session like that. If there's anything else you want us to know, please, by all means, ask the board for another couple of minutes and express to us and communicate to us whatever it is that we may not have already talked about in that 30 to 40-minute interview. Remember, these academies are here to develop leaders of character for service to our country. Yes, it may be interesting that you want to learn how to fly, be a surface warfare officer, a combat infantry marine, but first and foremost, this is the center point for the purpose of these federal service academies. Leadership is the behavior of leaders, and so that is what we're looking for. We're looking for that honesty and integrity as a level set, as a pillar, as pillars for moving forward on some of these other things. So we just came through Operation Diamond 2020 in Virginia District 10, and we're able to mine, as we said earlier, leaders, early stage leadership. We have identified the potential candidates, the next generation military leaders for these 4 federal service academies. And we would love to see you come through our boards or other boards across the country. I'll leave you with some thoughts. This nomination process is not about who you know or where you're from or your socioeconomic station or your political affiliation. It simply is not. It doesn't matter where you came from. It matters most in your selfless dream to serve as part of our country's best away team, the military and the Merchant Marine. Again, we'll come back to the oath of office and the journey of passion to serve our country. Please, whenever and wherever this nomination process happens for you, own the process. Not your parents. You need to own the process and the application from beginning to end. My second point of emphasis to the cadets out there is do not create any self-limitations. The world isn't always kind. It puts challenges in front of all of us. What we don't need to do is self-limit by putting those limitations in front of us. So keep your journey, your focus alive, and keep your desire to serve in sharp focus. There are ways and pathways for you to learn to serve. At this point in time, I would like to open the dialogue. And so hopefully there's some questions in the chat box. I have a very excellent team with me tonight from the board, and I'm more than happy to facilitate some questions as we go forward. So Anthony, I would ask you and perhaps Ms. Powell to help us here.
Certainly. We do have a couple of questions. I would encourage you, as folks are asking questions, feel free to continue to submit. If there's anything you'd like to know or get some clarification on, please go ahead and submit the response to everyone, and we'll try as hard as we can to address it. Start with the very first question. Is getting a nomination a binding contract, like an early decision when applying to a normal college? Colonel Garrett, you want to go ahead and take that one?
Sure. Thank you, Anthony. Hello. To answer your question, no, it's not a binding contract. A nomination is only part of the overall process to receive admission to any of the service academies, because you have to have a nomination and an appointment. There are many students who get multiple nominations to multiple academies, and they have a choice. And then there's some students that also have a choice of schools they decide to go to as well. So no, it's not a binding contract.
Thank you, Colonel Garrett. So we have a second question from a cadet. We'll direct this one to Captain Saragusa. Why is it a good idea not to focus your responses?
No, it is a good idea to focus your responses. It's an excellent idea. So what I was emphasizing there was, if you're asked a question by a panel member as part of the interview process for your nomination, think about what you're going to say. Formulate in your mind, in a couple of quick seconds of pause, how you would go about framing that answer to the question. And then answer the question in the simplest and clearest way that you possibly can. And that was the point of emphasis that I was trying to make.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next question. Why do we pick 5 candidates per seat if we're only allocated 1 seat per academy? So I'll actually take this question. So in reality, we nominate 10 per vacancy. So at any given time, my congressional district, Virginia's 10th district, can have 5 cadets at any one single academy, with the exception of the Merchant Marine Academy. And I'll let Rebecca go into that in just a little bit. But at any one point, we can have 5 cadets. Each year, we'll have a number of vacancies, whether it be 1 or 2. We nominate 10 candidates per vacancy. And then it is up to the academy to select the candidate that they would like to offer admission to. So it's a process to give the nomination opportunity for multiple candidates, and B, to make sure that our 10 best candidates at minimum are given the opportunity for the academy to look over their packets and select them for admission. So here's a question for the academy graduates. Captain Willis, I'll direct this one to you. Was there any doubt in your mind when you were applying to the academy, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I'll say for me, there was some doubt in my mind. I came from a family that was not in the military, so I wasn't as familiar with the military as some of my peers maybe were. I didn't get a great briefing like this one to remind me about that national military service mindset, and wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. I knew that West Point was a respected institution and would be a great education, but I really wasn't ready for everything that came along with it and wasn't knowledgeable enough, I don't think. So I think that the key there was really reaching out to, and as Captain Saragusa said, finding mentors, people who had experience at the academies and in the military, and learning from them, asking them questions, getting a much better idea of what I could expect, not just at the academy, but then my career in the Army as well, and what it meant to make that commitment. So that was my second thoughts were really about, am I ready to make this commitment? And the way I got past that was getting a better understanding of what that commitment entailed and what that would mean, and being more comfortable with it.
Thank you very much, Captain Willis. Next question, I will direct this to Rebecca Luke. I'd like to ask, does being in the Sea Cadet Corps help better the opportunity to be picked for, in this case, Naval Academy, but I'd like you, if you could speak in general to how the Sea Cadets help specifically admission to an academy, or how they project that individual towards a nomination.
Sure thing. As Captain Saragusa mentioned, during the interview process, we are looking for things that distinguish you from your peers that are also competing for in our case, those 5 nominations per academy. And we are looking for individuals that display the characteristics that will demonstrate leadership now, but extreme capability for leadership at the academy and post-graduation. And having the experience that you do as a Sea Cadet gives you a leg up of sorts. It doesn't guarantee you a nomination. It doesn't mean that the candidate or applicant that was before you or after you is a less qualified individual, but it does give you a unique perspective into military bearing, honesty, integrity, and the way to conduct yourselves under a stressful situation, which is a unique perspective only acquired through a junior ROTC or a Sea Cadet program or the Scouts or equal experience. I hope that answers the question.
I think that's great. Thank you. Captain Saragusa, we have a request to see the slide on having a military mindset again. So if you could go back to that. Okay. We have a question. I'm going to leave this open to whoever can answer this. I'm not certain of this, but could you go over the process of going to medical school directly after your tenure at the service academies? Is it even possible? And does the military pay for medical school as well? I think this is open to each academy.
Yeah, I'll take, this is Captain Saragusa. I'll take a shot. I just want to say that the last class that graduated with 1,069 members. Of the members, 12 of those members, or 1%, went directly to the medical corps. Now they were earmarked for the medical corps. Many of them will probably serve in a field assignment first. It could be surface warfare or submarine, then off to the medical corps in a guaranteed seat, but only 1%. So again, the numbers were 12 out of 1,069. So what does that mean? What are the implications for that? That means that those 12 individuals, in this case, for this graduating class of the Naval Academy, had to have absolute extraordinary academic performance, and probably a lot of those highly focused STEM classes that would enable those making the choices to serve in the medical corps to pick those individuals. I'll turn it over to any of my other board members to continue that conversation, answer that question.
Hey, Captain Saragusa, this is Ron.
Yes.
I can give you a little insight from the Air Force perspective. I mean, granted, my perspective is a little dated since I'm an '89 grad, but I had some classmates of mine, one or two, who went directly to medical school after graduating from the Air Force Academy. I know one of which was an ER doctor at Eglin Air Force Base Hospital when I last saw him at our 20-year reunion. So, but that was obviously years ago. I'm not sure what the process is now, but it is an option. But as the captain did say, it's very competitive. You know, as it is at a Naval Academy, it's going to be competitive at the Air Force Academy based on GPA and other academic factors. But it is possible. But it's just, you know, that's basically it. Yeah.
Just to build on that, I just want to say one other thing. My roommate graduated from the Naval Academy to the Medical Corps. After medical school, shifted to the Army and became an Army surgeon. And that was based on, at the time, the needs of the military. So it is possible, yes.
I'd like to follow up that and say that as far as the Merchant Marine Academy goes, there are two obligations post-graduation. There's a reserve requirement as well as a maritime industry requirement if you do not go active duty. So the medical field would be one of those areas that you would have to seek a maritime administration waiver in order to pursue. That does not hold true necessarily for things like law school, because you can specialize in admiralty law and other things that are maritime relevant, with the understanding that that's where you would fulfill your obligation post-graduation from law school. So specific to the medical field, it is not a opportunity upon graduation from the Merchant Marine Academy without a maritime administration waiver. And I'd also like to highlight as an alibi that Admiral Moon made a very good point in the group chat, that in response to the last question that I answered, that while being a Sea Cadet does give you extra oomph, rising to the rank of a cadet chief, as he said, really sets you apart, and it shows you can commit to something and see it through in the end. I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to that comment from him. Thank you, Admiral.
There's one other point I would like to make, and it really ties everything back into a bow. It goes back to a little of what Captain Willis was talking about. If you decided to, if you had a mindset toward the medical corps, and I don't want to dwell too long on this, and you were not successful, you needed to come to grips prior to coming into one of these federal service academies with the understanding that, you know, you understand that when you graduate, you're going to be a commissioned officer in one of these other warfare specialties. So you do need to talk to folks, to Captain Willis's point, as many as you can, to get a perspective so you have no doubts. Because if you, for example, were not one of the 12 of 1069 at the Naval Academy that were chosen, you would wind up having to select some other warfare area.
And Captain Saragusa, I'll just quickly close out on this question for the Military Academy. Is very similar to Naval Academy and Air Force. 1 or 2 graduates each year are allowed to go directly into medical school, but again, it's very, very competitive and only available to those with the highest class rank.
Thank you so much for those answers. That's fantastic. Next question, a pretty simple one, and I'll handle this one. How many candidates apply for the vice presidential nomination? Last numbers were approximately 2,500. So it is obviously one of the more difficult because it's a nationwide nomination. Next question is an interesting one. Probably whoever can answer this, go for it. I heard that getting your ham radio operator license earned you a point on the Academy application. What other things can earn points?
I'm going to take a gander at this one. Rebecca Lake from the Merchant Marine Academy. I'm not sure that the individual that you heard that from was speaking specifically to the ham radio operator license itself, in as much as the dedication that it took to acquire that license and the study skills and the additional experience that was gained from that gave them an extra qualification when compared to one of their peers. For example, if you have a pilot's license and you are a chess player and you are in the top 15% of your class, and you go up against somebody that is a chess player and in the top 15% of their class, your pilot's license is going to set you in a different category because you've acquired additional experience in something that requires focus and leadership. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that would be my speculation as it relates to that it's not specific to the ham operator's license, but any license.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I would echo that sentiment. It's similar in all aspects. As Admiral Moon pointed out, being a Sea Cadet does get you some push and some oomph behind on your application, but being a Cadet Chief gives you not only the Sea Cadet angle, but also the leadership angle. So things like that earn you points as we go. And it's really dependent on the board as well and how they score. Let's see here. I had one question here for Rebecca, back to you. In regards to the Merchant Marine Academy, is it harder or easier to be selected for appointment compared to the other academies? And what would be the biggest thing to focus on when applying to the Merchant Marine Academy?
So in anticipation of a question along this lines, I will just pull up the class of 2024 statistics. So the class that showed up this past summer. There were 1,758 applications. Of those, 1,494 students received nominations. There were an additional 949 incomplete applications. So keep in mind, just because you open an application does not mean that you are guaranteed an appointment. Ultimately, there were 428 appointments that were awarded. So 428 individuals out of 1,758 applicants, of whom 1,494 received nominations. So significantly less than what was eligible received appointments. And then there were only 281 students that reported in. So because we are smaller and because the appointment process is just as competitive as it is for any other academy, I would say that we are as hard as any other academy. The only exception that I would offer is that because we are a Department of Transportation school and not a Department of Defense school, there is an additional avenue afforded to those who are seeking appointments to the Merchant Marine Academy, in that within your state, you're eligible to pursue a nomination from any congressional district. Keep in mind that just because you're eligible does not mean that that congressional office has to open up their nomination process to you based off of what their demographics are. What to focus on as far as making yourself a better candidate from the school's perspective. I do serve as an admissions field representative as well, and we get this question often. Academics, focus on your STEM. If you have the ability to participate in anything that is maritime related, whether, I mean, obviously you're Sea Cadets, so there is the water angle there, but if you're able to participate in sailing or scuba diving or oceanography or any of those types of activities, I would encourage you to do so, not because it necessarily will guarantee your admission, but because it will give you a leg up on those types of knowledge areas at the academy and enable you to have a little bit easier of an understanding in those academic categories. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. So we've got about 4 minutes. So we're going to try to get through a couple more questions. What if you were nominated but not appointed? Do you have to do an interview again? And will you be denied an appointment, or will being denied an appointment affect applying again? Colonel Gary, you want to take that one?
Could you repeat the question again?
Certainly. What if you were nominated but not appointed to the actual academy? Do you have to do the interview again? And will being denied an appointment affect applying again?
Oh, okay. I got you. If you're nominated and obviously don't accept or do not get a nomination for the current year, then yes, you will have to apply again. for another nomination the following year and go through the nomination process again. But that does not preclude someone from receiving an appointment to a service academy because you've had to go through the nomination process, say twice. It's happened before. I even remember I was an Air Force Academy liaison officer at one point as well. You know, I had a few high schools within the Houston area, and I had a couple of kids who went through the process twice, and one received a nomination the second time around and an appointment as well. So it's really about perseverance and persistence, keeping up with it. If it's what you want to do. Yes, you may have to go through some extra hoops if you don't get that nomination the first time around, but it's definitely still possible to receive the appointment the second time around. So it's just got to keep trying at it. Does that help?
Absolutely. And I would offer that some of our best interviews are those that have applied twice and come through the second time, because you know what to expect and you've had a chance to really take in what they told you the first time and better yourself. So we have quite a few candidates that come back after a year in college, whether they're doing an ROTC program or not, and apply again.
Yeah, definitely.
This question is specific to COVID, so I want to touch on it. It's potentially our last question. Some states, California, are entering another state of lockdowns. Due to this, all SAT sites are closed and appear as if they will be closed for much longer. Do you recommend cadets in closed states go across state lines to take tests? Will you be disqualified if you are unable to take the test? So I'll speak briefly on what we did this year. So this year we ran into the same issue. Obviously over the summer SAT scores were closed, and typically on October 1st, when your application comes in, everything needs to come in complete. SAT, ACT scores and everything. This year, due to the COVID pandemic, we extended the deadline for SATs to December 1st. And that allowed all of our candidates to take and receive their SAT scores and get them into us before our December 1st deadline. Next year, you know, nobody's quite sure what that's going to bring, but it doesn't, in our case, doesn't preclude you from applying. And I know I can't speak to the exact specifics of each academy because it's a fluid situation, but the academies are extremely flexible this year on their acceptance of scores for applications. So I assume that will likely be the same thing next year, but as we progress through this pandemic, you know, things will kind of take a fluid motion. So Vicki, with that, I don't want to keep you all any longer. Thank you so much for having us. If you have further questions, feel free to submit them to Vicki or to any of your leadership. They could filter them through us and we'll do our best to get them answered for you. If there was something you wanted to ask tonight that we didn't get a chance to get to, I see there were some more questions. We're happy to continue this conversation at a later date. I wish you all the absolute best of luck. And again, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, Anthony, to you and your team for taking your time on a Saturday and especially during the Army-Navy game to come and join us. I just really appreciate the insight that you gave all of our cadets. And I'm going to reach out to Admiral Moon to see if he has any closing remarks before we dismiss all of the cadets. Admiral Moon?
Yes, thank you for this very, very informative session. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your days to do it, and I wish the cadets all the success they can achieve as they go applying for colleges and service academies and whatever in their future. And just let the cadets know that I'm available if they have any questions. I have one son who went to the Coast Guard Academy. I went to Naval Academy, and I had two other children who went ROTC to Villanova and Penn State. So I can answer a lot of questions and help lead you in the right direction. Anyway, thank you to the panel. Really appreciate you taking the time and being with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Anthony, please extend our gratitude to Congresswoman Wexton for being such a great supporter locally in her district of the Sea Cadet Corps. and for supporting our efforts here nationwide. So thanks again, everyone. And our panelists, if you can just stay on, and cadets, thank you for attending. You are now dismissed. Have a great weekend.